Welcome to our webinar. Alberto?
Good morning, everyone. Yes, good morning. I'm Alberto Olivas. I'm director of the Congressman Ed Pastor Center for Politics and Public Service here at Arizona State University. And we were created by a gift from the congressman because he thought it was important for students and community members to have a place where they could learn how things work in the real world and how to get involved. The practical skills for civic and political engagement and information and activism and all of those things. This is a second year of this series of diversifying political engagement for us. We started this series to really be able to dive deep into what are the challenges that different communities in our state face with regards to getting involved, to being connected in their communities and being represented politically as voters, as constituents, as appointed and elected officials, as people that have the ability to weigh in on the decisions that are being made that affect all of us. And so this is our second year, and every one of these events focuses on a different part of our community. And today, as Tiffany will tell you, is International Women's Day. So this is our focus on women's perspectives with regards to civic and political engagement and representation. We're really excited about our panelists that have they're just a treasure of wisdom and experience with regards to these topics. So I'm going to be quiet and let them tell us what are the challenges that women in Arizona face with regards to civic and political engagement and representation, and what can we do about it? So thank you for joining us today. It's going to be an amazing conversation. Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you, Alberto. As Alberto said, welcome everybody. My name's Tiffany. I'm the program manager here in the Congressman Ed Pastor Center for Politics and Public Service at ASU. I'm also a woman, and it's also my birthday. So we're celebrating International Women's Day here with all of you on this webinar. So thank you so much for joining us today as we continue as we go embark on this wonderful conversation that will expose some of the challenges that women face in political and public administration experiences, and some of the strengths that are there, and maybe some of the triumphs as well. So with that said, before we get started, I do want to read a poem for us to prepare us for today's discussion. This poem is called Woman Work by Maya Angelou. I've got the children to tend, the clothes to mend, the floor to mop, the food to shop, then the chicken to fry, the baby to dry. I got company to feed, the garden to weed. I've got shirts to press, the tots to dress, the cane to be cut. I gotta clean up this hut, then see about the sick and the cotton to pick. Shine on me, sunshine. Rain on me, rain. Fall softly, dewdrops, and cool my brow again. Storm, blow me from here with your fiercest wind. Let me float across the sky till I can rest again. Fall gently, snowflakes, cover me with white, cold, icy kisses, and let me rest tonight. Sun, rain, curving sky, mountain, oceans, leaf and stone, star shine, moon glow, you're all that I can call my own. Let us prepare ourselves for the conversation that we are about to have, the discussion that these beautiful, wonderful, phenomenal women are going to bring to you today. We hope that you learn something valuable, that you take something away from you today, that you make connections with these women and hear what they have to say. So as we prepare for this discussion, let me introduce you to our wonderful moderator, Miss Murphy Hebert. Murphy, join us.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm Murphy Hebert. I'm the Deputy Assistant Secretary of State in Arizona, and I am super thrilled to be able to participate and learn from the women on this panel. I am grateful, as always, for the support and civic engagement that the Pastor Center leads on, and I'm just thrilled to be here. Thank you so much.
Murphy's going to go ahead and get started and let our panelists come and introduce themselves. You want me to do it, Murphy?
That would be great if you don't mind.
All right, all right. So let's go ahead and introduce our panelists. Ms. Janelle, can you get us started?
Yes, thank you, Tiffany, and thank you all for having me, Alberto and Murphy. It's good to see you. My name is Janelle Wood, and I am the founder and CEO of Black Mothers Forum. And this particular topic and subject is very near and dear to our hearts because we as Black mothers oftentimes we struggle to be involved in these conversations due to the many tasks that we must attend to on a daily basis. But yet, nonetheless, we need to be involved. And so our organization has been quite intentional about being involved in helping mothers develop their collective voice. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ms. Janelle. Gina, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. And happy birthday, Tiffany. That's wonderful that we're doing this and that your birthday falls on International Women's Day. But thank you to everybody in the Pasteur Center for hosting this discussion. I think it's very important and it's wonderful as we celebrate Women's History Month to come together with these beautiful and inspiring women here and just listen to our unique perspectives. So I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this panel. Again, my name is Gina and I am the Voter Education Director for the Arizona Citizens Clean Elections Commission. I've been working in election administration for almost 2 decades now, and I get to see, so many different avenues for people to participate in the political process, whether that's through voting, but also, there's other forms of civic engagement. And I think it's really important that, we talk about what some of those challenges could be. That way we can help people overcome those, because I think the more that we get folks to participate, the healthier our democracy will be, the healthier our state will be. And I think that women oftentimes do face unique challenges. And I'm just really grateful to be here today and share my perspectives on what those challenges are. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Gina. Ms. Burdetta, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, yes, I am Burdetta Hodge. I am a Tempe council member. I'm also a governing board member and also a commissioner for the African American Affairs for the governor. So I wear a couple of titles. Also, I am I'm one of the co-owners of Booker T. Washington Head Start program in Phoenix. I'm really happy to be here. For one thing, happy birthday. For second, happy Women's International Month. I mean, this is all just so phenomenal to be here at this time with all these lovely people on this call. My perception is a little bit different. I want to talk about how it affects to be an elected official and how women are discarded as elected official and how hard it is to break into that world sometimes, to be in that world. So mine is a little bit different. I want to explain how I got to the journey I'm at, and all the challenges and obstacles that you have to cross to get over to that part of it. So I'm just happy to be a part of this panel. I'm going to apologize early. I am on the vice president, which is really great because Vice President Harris is here today, and she's on her way to an event, which I get to see her come in. So I may be cutting out a little bit earlier than most because I got to get there to get on. I'm going to be on the tarp to see her come in. And then I get to go down there with her VIP to her. So I might have to sneak out a little bit earlier than I attend to because I had no idea this was happening until this week. So I do apologize in advance.
Well, thank you so much for being here and congratulations for being able to participate in that today. We're so grateful that you still are here to participate in this conversation and help us with this conversation, even with just this amazing opportunity that you have today. So thank you so much for being here. Ms. Bettina, would you like to introduce yourself?
I would love to. I almost said good morning. Can I still say good morning? Well, I've got 10 minutes. I've got 10 minutes. Bettina Nava, and my background is one of running political campaigns. I've worked in government, and now I am the proud owner of a communications firm. But we're a little different. I'm a proud owner and partner, and We are a communications firm that uses all the tools in the toolbox, but really what we're trying to do is educate to the point of moving hearts and minds, and moving hearts and minds in a way that is empowering to more people, but just building a bigger table. I think, as Gina said, democracy is better when we have a bigger table, and just empowering people to be part of that process. So that's my background, and I thank you, Tiffany. Happy day, and Alberto, thank you so much for this invite.
Thank you, Ms. Bettina. Shannon?
Thank you. And yes, it's almost afternoon. I'll say good afternoon to everyone. Tiffany, that poem I have not heard in a very long time and was very apropos. So thank you for that. And thank you for the invite to be here today. My name is Shannon Hayes. I am the operations coordinator and lead advocate for Black Mothers Forum. I also sit on the governing board with Black Mothers Forum, as well as Arizona Fair Housing, and have recently been elected to the education chair for the state conference of NAACP. My background is not in politics, but as a mother, and specifically as a Black mother, I can speak to the barriers, to the challenges, and just the amount of understanding that's required for us to be involved and engaged in the political landscape. So I'm glad to be here, glad to be a participant in this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shannon. And Tara?
Thanks so much for having me here today. Tara Jackson, I'm president of the Arizona Town Hall. I've been an attorney since 1990, which is a long time, and I bring that up because part of my practice before I came to the Arizona Town Hall involved sex discrimination cases, working with lots of different groups to empower women, including Seroptimus International, Phoenix, and many other organizations. My husband and I have 5 grown children now. 3 of them are amazing young women. As a full-time practicing attorney helping to raise small children, that's a balance that we all need to be aware of and think of. And maybe I'll just leave it at that. Well, one more thing I should say, that I believe empowering women is so important because that is what will make the world a better place. That's been proven over and over again. Bringing diverse perspectives, whether to a business problem, a policy problem, or anything else, is where we get the best answers. And women's perspectives have been undervalued along with some other groups for a long time. And I like to keep the focus on that's how we all get better answers for everyone.
Thank you so much, Tara. And thank you to all of our panelists for their introductions. I do just want to remind everyone that this is an election year. And so we will be dropping a turbo vote link into the chat every so often throughout this event, just so if you need to check your registration, re-register, or do whatever you need to do with regard to voting, we will be dropping that link in the chat as we go through the event. And on to you, Murphy, for questions. Also, we have a Q&A portion of this event towards the end, so please feel free to drop any of your questions or answers in the Q&A portion of the little webinar function here. Over to you, Murphy.
Thank you so much. I was super excited to hear you talk about it being an election year because today is, in fact, the last day to request your early ballot for the presidential preference election. So if you want to sign up for the active early voting list, or if you want to request a one-time ballot by mail for the presidential preference election, today is the day to do it. You can go to Arizona.vote to find out how. And I think since we have a councilwoman here, we should probably also plug that there are 2 jurisdictional elections going on, one in Tempe and one in Litchfield Park. So lots of democracy happening here in our state. And thank you for the opportunity again to participate in this discussion. I'm going to ask the first question to the full panel. I'd love to hear about what role the voice of women play in shaping future policy and administrative priorities, both in the state and in the country. And I'm going to add a little extra twist to that question. If we're talking about what role women play. And let's also talk about what role women should play in those areas. So is there anyone who wants to take that first?
I'll go. I'll jump in. Yeah, I think we're going to see that women will continue to have a greater voice and a greater role in policy decisions. I think we're continuing to see the numbers rise of women participation in politics, in civic engagement. I think the numbers show that. When you look at Arizona itself, we have a very rich history of women being involved in politics. And, we had Arizona's known for having the Fab Five, right? When we had the time period in the 90s when all 5 of our executive offices were held by women. And when you look at the makeup of our state legislature, I believe we're ranked 3rd in the country by the Center for American Women in Politics for the makeup of women in our legislature. And so when you look at the data, also compared to voter turnout, women are outranking men by about 2 percentage points when it comes to showing up at the polls. And I think all of that is leading to the fact that women will continue to have a greater and stronger voice in shaping the policy decisions that impact our state. And so, I think the data is showing that we're seeing that women are being engaged. And I think what's really important, that add on to your question, Murphy, about where should women be? I think they absolutely should have a voice in making those policy decisions. And the reason why, so I have, I think when we're speaking here for our panelists and, for myself, I'm able to offer my experience as a professional, but also my personal experience. I'm a mom. I have 2 children. And, that takes up all of my time, right? And so being a mom, it goes exactly to that poem that we just heard. All of the things that we have to do as women, as the caretakers for our children in our home, what that does is it opens our eyes to all of those policy decisions that are in our community, such as schools, right? I interact with my children's schools. I take them to the doctor. So I'm interacting with healthcare. I take them to the library. So I'm interacting with our local government and the services that they provide. And so I think those daily interactions are what prompts me as a woman to be more engaged. And I think it helps make that connection with why these policy decisions are so important, both for my current, life and how I live my life with my children and my family, but also for the future of my children. So I think, in a roundabout way, what I'm trying to say is the data showcases that women are there, that women are having a stronger and increasingly stronger voice and power in future policy decisions, but also taking it to the personal level of how we can make that connection. And I think it's just through my role as a woman, as the caretaker of my family and how I interact with my children and in my community, that's how it makes the connection for me of why it matters, why it's important for me to participate in politics, participate in political engagement.
Beautifully said, Gina. Beautifully said. And I'll speak about it more from the electoral side. When we see many campaigns are decided by hundreds of votes, thousands of votes. Last presidential, it was 10,000 votes, right? The deciding factor, as we've been able to dive into that data, it's been women that have been deciding, because women also, we know statistically speaking, don't vote a static ballot. We're smarter than that. We can contain the multitudes. So we might vote one way in one certain office and another. So our ballot is very, very dynamic, not static. You have to earn our vote. And that's very empowering when women, it's a vote that you definitely have to earn, because you don't automatically get our vote just because of one variable or another. Again, we contain the multitudes, so you better speak to us on a number of levels.
And I'd like to jump in. I concur with all that you all have said. And I think one of the things that we definitely need to make sure we key in on is many of us, especially Black women in America, we believe that our voices at times are muted. And what I mean by that is when we vote, that's our voice. But we need to be at the table when these bills and policies are being shaped and formed, because we are on the ground. We see what's really going on. And when people present bills to us, and that happens to us all the time, they always want us to jump on board with the bill. We never were invited to the table to be a part of the discussion as you were forming the bill and as you were putting the language in place so that we could tell you how relevant it is. So the role that we should be playing, especially women of color, especially our community, is we should be at the table before we even get the verbiage completed and finalized for us to review it. That's the role I'd like to see us play. I agree with the other ladies. My vote, I don't vote static. I vote for the issue and the person. And I believe that that's how women are voting now. And we are powerful when it comes to voting, because we are going to vote. Women are voting, and we're not playing with our candidates, and we're not playing with the issues. And we are very, very well informed these days. We're more informed than we were years ago. And now it's just a matter of being at the table when these bills are being formed, when they're being written. That's where our voice needs to be, more so than not at this time in history. And I'd like to see us be at those tables more so often than where we're at now.
Thank you. It looks like Bernadette would like to contribute as well.
Yes. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. I apologize. I'm having system issues, so if I cut out, I apologize. As I would say, I think that we need to be I agree with Ms. Woods. We definitely need to be at the table. We also need to be setting the table. So I think we need to be running for office. I think more women need to be in leadership. I think that because no one can represent us better than us. So I honestly believe that, you know, as they say, it takes a man one time to decide if he's going to run for office. But if a woman decides to run for office, she has to feel that she's been asked 7 different times before she feels adequate enough to be able to run. And also they put different barriers on women. Like when I ran, they said, Bernadette, what about your kids? Bernadette, what about this? What about that? They don't ask those same questions of men. So I think that we just need to be able to be, you know, uphold each other and and grab each other and say, it's okay. You can run, you can take this office, you can be at the table at all times. Because as we said, Ms. Wood, it is really hard sometimes to get us in those rooms. But if we're already in the room, it's our room in the beginning, it makes a difference. So me being in city council opened up more doors for me to talk about women's issues, women's reproduction. It's a whole different world versus me trying to get in that door. I'm the one who's actually inviting people into the room. So I think that we just need to, as women, we need to look at the fact that we can run for office and we can win.
Bernadette, did it take 7 times for folks to talk to you before you decided to run, or did you sort of have a calling for it?
No, it took, I always had the calling, but it took, it took a lot for me to do it because, you know, I got a lot of backhanded, you won't win because you're Black, you're in an area, you got to run in Albuquerque's not ready for you, you got to take your braids out of your hair, you're not, you know, you don't fit the part. So they wanted me to change my whole image. They wanted me to change everything about me. Don't talk about the fact that you're not married anymore. You know, you'll do better if they think you're married, you know. So it was all about building a narrative about me that wasn't actually true. So yeah, it did take a lot for me to do it because I was so nervous about all the things that I had. I'm like, I'm a single parent, and they're going to look at that. They're going to look at the fact that I'm African-American woman. And I was one of the first African women. I was actually probably the first African-American woman to win in Albuquerque. And that was something they were like, well, we don't know if they're ready for you. You know, in 2014, they were like, we don't know if they're ready for you. They may not like your image. Don't put your picture on anything. You know, let them not know who you are. Take your first name off of it. Never say Bernadette. Just put Hodge. You know, so it was a lot for me. It was not just about being a woman. It was about being a woman of color on top of it.
Right. I am floored. Thank you for sharing that experience with us. Unfortunately, I don't think you're the only person who's experienced, like, I think women of color running at every level experience that. And I'm glad that you were able to push back against that and continue to make the choices and representation that you do. That's pretty impressive and powerful. And so thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Janelle, did you want to jump in too?
First of all, I applaud you, Burdetta, for sharing that, because I just ran for office. I was just talking to Shannon about it. My experience was totally different. Took a while for me to get to the table to run for office, but my experience was not good at all. And I probably won't run again because it was such a bad experience for me. It was unfortunate. And mine was the same thing. Janelle, don't put your face on the thing because you're Black. And I'm in South Phoenix. And so I'm like, wait a minute, but no, not for you. It's going to be more for your Hispanic brothers and sisters that are going to win versus you, Janelle. So don't put your thing out there and you need to do this. And that was awful because I have lived here for many, many years. I have poured into this community, and for people to tell me that, and then to, continue to tell me you can't do this, you can't say that, no, you should have ran for this. None of that works, and we have to be free to be and move the way we need to be and move in this work. And unfortunately, when you stand up and say, I'm not going to do it that way, I'm going to do it my way, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. It worked well for you, Burdetta, and I'm glad at least we have you sitting in space. Prayerfully, we'll have more of us get a chance to have that opportunity.
Well, Janelle, I'll tell you, it didn't work for me the first time. I lost my first race, and they told me that it was because I didn't listen and put my picture on my things. And it was, I understand exactly how you feel, because even when I won city council, first thing that my constituents told me, they said, oh, you can take your braids out of your hair. And I was like, oh, what? So you know what I did? I wouldn't put longer ones in. Because it's just to the fact that you had the audacity to tell me how my hair should look when I'm in office is not, that's just unacceptable. No one says that to anybody else but a Black woman, how your hair is supposed to look. So I applaud for you for running, and I know I followed your race, and I know how hard it was for you. But if you ever tried again, don't ever let anybody else make that decision for you. You do what you have to do, and we as women need to support women more.
Thank you.
That is a powerful moment that just happened right now. I want to take some time and some space to acknowledge it, right? Like, we are women trying to lift other women up. And that was really cool. Happy International Women's Day. Unless anyone has info or anything else to add to this conversation, I'd love to move to the next question, if that's okay with the panel. I think we have no response. Great, thank you so much. So the next question is kind of my favorite, in part because I can't say that I'm a new mom anymore. I have a toddler now, but I'm a first-time mom, and it has definitely changed the way that I have had to navigate professional life and my personal life, and especially within the political sphere and the sphere of civic engagement. Having a child changes my perspective on lots of things. So my next question is about motherhood. I'd love to know how family obligations and motherhood contribute to the success of women in civic engagement and public administration. And I'd love for Shannon to start if she's available.
Yeah, absolutely. I think motherhood really just provides a unique perspective on social issues, and that does drive us as women and as mothers to advocate for policies that are going to best benefit our children, their education, their health care, and just the welfare of our families in general. But that also extends out to the community as a whole. You'll find that women are going to be more inclusive. And so it's essential that our voice is heard, because we are going to come with the opportunities to provide more advocacy in regards to the needs of everyone, which can lead to more inclusive and effective governance. So as far as being a mother, we come with a different set of skills, I would say. You know, we multitask. We're the ones organizing everything. We're negotiating. So I think that's very valuable in civic engagement and leadership roles.
Shannon, could I ask you a quick follow-up on that?
Yeah.
Would you be willing to talk a little bit about the difference in the way that you engage before motherhood and the different, like how you engage now in that space as a mother?
Well, I became a mother very young. My son was born when I was 19, and so I was not engaged. I registered to vote. That was about as engaged as I was.
That's engaged as a lot of people get. So give yourself some credit there.
Right. But as I've grown, as my children have grown, as I've developed in the spaces where I work, then my understanding has evolved. I think I've connected with a couple of organizations who are on the panel previously, and that's helped me to better understand the need to be more involved locally, especially with civic engagement and understanding that it does start here. So that's how mine has changed over the years. And again, like I said, just dealing with issues that have come up personally in my life that I have affected the way that I look at the political scene and the things that need to be done. So I think as we grow in motherhood, our needs change and the needs of our families. And so that's kind of the direction that we flow in. Did that answer your question?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well stated. I would like to ask Janelle and then Berdetta to also chime in if they're comfortable and available.
Yeah, I am. Thank you. As far as motherhood and how we flow, one of the things that I had to do as a mother, and before motherhood, I wasn't as active as I was afterwards, because my son, who's on the call, he's actually on here. Some of the things that he had to go through being a black male in the school system here in Arizona, I really had to learn how to advocate for him in a way I never had to advocate for myself. And I had to make sure that he was not being criminalized or demonized for his behavior. I had to make sure I understood who was the principal. I had to recognize how to read the student handbook and know his rights. And so I learned these things after being a mother, and then being able to know who to talk to at the administrative level in order to get things he needed changed in order for him to excel in school. As I started this work with Black Mothers Forum, then it became even more. I got a chance to really understand at a broader level, a more global level of some of the concerns that we were facing in our community when it not only came to education, but when it came to healthcare, when it came to workforce development, making sure that we're prepared. And so I had to learn how to get involved. And then I got blessed and get a job at City Council. And so I became a chief of staff for City Councilman Johnson. And so when I had taken on that role as a mother, I actually had a inside view of what departments, what resources were available for our community. And I started to deepen my understanding of the need of civic engagement. And that is why many of the Black mothers like Shannon in our organization, we encourage mothers to be on boards, to be on commissions, to get involved, to register, to speak, to run for office. Berdetta, I did it just to be a role model for our group, to say you can do it too. So, but it's for our children. My whole focus is to make sure every child has an opportunity to be and grow who they're going to be and grow into be who they're going to be. And so with that push and my passion for children and our community, that's what keeps my fire burning bright in this world of civic engagement and political involvement. It is key. And it is huge for all of us as mothers. We're the ones on the ground. All those folks sitting in those seats that sit as legislators, all of them have a mama. They got here some way by a mama. So that's why it's so important that we stay involved. And I know Berdetta's son is amazing. I just want to say that you raised an amazing young man. Just want to say.
Thank you so much. You know what? It's funny, y'all gonna laugh, but I think I was more engaged before I had my kids than be after. I was one of those teenagers. I had my son. I was a teenage mom, but I was down at the Capitol as a teenager fighting for rights and engaging. I was very much political all the way throughout before my kids came. I guess I was always on the same path is what I want to say. What makes me as a parent makes me more engaged is I just realized, I know this for a while. I think we all realize we have less rights as a woman than our grandmothers. And that is a very scary thought. And I am afraid that there's going to be a lot of parents, a lot of mothers. If we don't stop this, they're going to be mothers that are not ready or don't want to be mothers because it's against the law and, for them not to be mothers. When you're getting prosecuted for having a miscarriage and they consider it an abortion. Mm-hmm. It's a lot going on right now in our world. No matter what side of the coin you flip on, if you're for pro-life or against pro-life, it should not be a choice of someone sitting at a desk, especially a male sitting at a desk making that decision. That should be on the woman's decision. And as a parent, that scares me. If I would have had a daughter, that I don't know what this world is going to be like for my child. I have two sons, but it's just we don't know, as it's so much going on right now as a parent. And I think that drives me to continue on to do what I do. But I just, for all the women that's coming up beyond me, we got to continue this fight because more and more every day, it seems like women's rights are being taken away at a higher pace than anybody else's. So we got to continue to fight for our children in our schools. We got to fight for our children at the legislature. We got to fight for our women everywhere we go, because this month, this international month, is probably the most important one we've ever had, because this is the first time that we walk into it in 50 years that we had less rights than our grandparents will, and maybe even less rights than our grandchildren will have. Our grandchildren may have less rights than us if we don't watch out what's going on. So I just want to, add that into the conversation.
Thank you. Kara, you had your hand up. Would you like to add something?
I would. Thank you so much. What great comments. And clearly one of the things that mothers bring to policy is passion. There's nothing like that love that you have for your children. And we're hearing a lot of that. And I know for me, I often say, I do the work now of trying to solve problems for communities to keep my two boys who are in the military, to keep them and all of our young women out of having to go to war. And that is something I think that women and mothers have a special gift that they bring to policy, is solving complex issues coming from a place of, I hate to generalize, lots of men do this too, but women more than men, perhaps because we're mothers, can come from a place of love in solving difficult issues. There is a certain wisdom when you are the major disciplinarian for your child, and you have to come from a place of love and drawing appropriate boundaries and trying to solve a problem, that we need more than ever, coming from a place of love, learning to mediate and to see the complexity that some of you referenced, and to work with that complexity, especially when it comes to women's bodies and women's reproductive rights. It is a complex area, and it is one that we understand more than anyone because we're living in those bodies. And so really, really important to bring that wisdom. I also want to talk about the challenges some of you highlighted. I certainly encountered this the first time I came back from maternity leave, where I had someone ask, well, who's taking care of your children? As if judging me that I am not a good mom because I am doing something other than staying at home full time. And understanding that that is also a complex decision that is different for all of us. And there is a lot to be said for women to, whether it's running for office or holding office, we are helping to protect all of our children by bringing our wisdom and knowledge to these spaces. And that is incredibly important. So just that is one of the challenges as well. The last one I want to add that I bet all moms, especially you that still have young children, ours are all in their 20s now, understand balancing time, because statistics show it's still the mothers, even if the father's there in the home, it's still the mothers that are taking care of the majority of the work at home, losing the sleep, and also trying to maintain everything else that happens. That was certainly my experience. That's a challenge.
Yeah, heard. Gina and I had lunch a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, yeah, I haven't slept in almost 2 years. It's fine, it's no problem. Gina, you had your hand up. Do you want to add something?
I would love to join in, because this is just, I'm feeling everything that everybody has said here so far. And, I really liked how you phrased the question, Murphy, about, before you had children, how were you civically engaged? And, from what I'm hearing, the thing that stands out to me is, we hear the differences between an I society and a we society. And I will admit, before I had children, I was very focused on the I. I was focused on what can I do to achieve my ambition, my goals, what are the policies that will impact me and, make me successful. And it was all me, me, me. And then when I had children, my perspectives changed. And wow, I really need to focus on society here and the good for all. And it changed. Do we have, looking at our education system, when my children were ready to hit into school, I spent hours upon hours researching. Whereas my husband, he's like, why can't they just go to our homeschool? No, I have to look into all this. I have to look into the best fit. I have to look into their grades. I have to look into the school boards. I have to look into the education, the dollars that are being allocated. So it just, and then again, healthcare too. And then my children with their specific needs and their IEPs. And so much, it just changed my perspective about, I really need to be focused on what's good for society and not just me. And so motherhood helped shift my perspectives that way. And one of the things that really stood out to me in some of the earlier questions, and hearing Burdetta and Janelle speak, for the women who are able to break through those challenges and, who are able to, pull their own chair out at the table and make their own seat, I think it's so important, from what I've heard, is extending those invitations to others and making space for others to come on board, and mentoring, women, I think, is so important, and providing that support, because we need a good support system to be able to do all the things that we have to do, from our jobs and being mothers, and we have no time, we have no sleep. So having that support system is so helpful. And I'm going to share you an example that, that happened last week. Last week, I called Miss Tara Jackson here for a work phone call for a professional reason. And immediately she could tell something was off in my voice. And that was because my son just got a diagnosis that I was, dealing with. And she immediately offered her time. She said, hey, you know what? My son has that. I've been through it. I can meet with you. And to me, that is everything, because our time is so valuable. But here I have another woman who has gone through something similar, who understands the challenges between working in a professional capacity and my time, but also being a mother and prioritizing my children's needs. And she offered her time and expertise to me. So I think that's really important in how we support one another too. And, when we're making space at the table, that we continue to open it up to others and mentor each other.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Bettina, do you want to jump in?
Love to. And I'm over here sweating because I'm having hot flashes.
My God.
Not too much information. I don't care. It's a
Here
safe
for it.
space. I don't care. I think that when I first started in my career, there was a sense of expediency. And now I know I'm running a marathon. It's more about the marathon. It's planting trees, whether or not I get to sit in the shade of them. And that's okay, because somebody will, and that's what matters. I also think, you know, when in my lived experience, I didn't really have maternity leave. You know, I'm older. I didn't, and so now it is my responsibility. It is incumbent upon me to at least ensure in my small network, even if that's all I can effectuate, that the young women, and it's all young women that I work with, really, that they have choices. And that it is incumbent and responsible upon me, because I didn't speak up. I didn't have those choices. Maybe it was a systemic problem, whatever. Now it is my responsibility. And in addition to that, mental health care, normalizing mental health care. And whether it's, you know, I need to see a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a leadership advisor, that we normalize this and that we share what we're comfortable sharing, but it is not abnormal to need somebody to help us navigate this very complex journey. And I hope that when I have the opportunity to be in community with people, that I'm helping to normalize that we need that.
Yeah, I love that. And I was trying to show you the very large fan that I have sitting off to the left of me as well. Just normalize the fan. Can I pose a new question to the group? Are we okay to move on? Great. So I'm excited about this question because I think everyone's answers thus far have touched on it. And I'm just really looking forward to the conversation. I'd love for the group to talk about how do current systems disincentivize women from participating in civic engagement, including running for and holding office. So we've talked a little bit about that already, but I'd love to dive a bit deeper if folks have thoughts they'd like to share.
I'd love to jump in, and I'm going to take it a little broader, but this absolutely impacts women, and that is how systems disincentivize people from engaging, especially in the election process. And to be clear, civic engagement is much broader than just elections, but we're in an important election year, so I'm going to focus on that one. For about 17, almost 18 years now, I've been doing the work at the Arizona Town Hall, where I'm going around the state listening to all different people talk about how to solve our most important issues, whether it's education. Think of how much, you know, Gina touched on this, a couple of you did, education for our children or others, mental and physical health care. And I kept wondering why most people seem to say we should have certain policies in place, but that never seems to happen. The more I looked into that, the more I came to a working conclusion that definitely now has been shown to be true, that there is a systemic issue that is keeping us from getting the policies that most of us want, especially women, and also from having women run for and get elected into office. So we have those seats at the table that some of you talked about are so important. Here's one of the systemic issues that I really want to highlight, and that is our primaries. Now, over a third of registered voters are independents, both in Maricopa County and in the state, approximately. That's a large percentage of voters. And I don't know if Gina knows or anyone knows, but what percentage of those are women? I'm going to guess it's a pretty large amount. Which person, especially, I can't remember, one of you talked about how women tend to don't just vote black and white, but go down the whole ballot, take it a little more in complexity. That's true of many independents. Independents are largely disincentivized from voting in the primary elections. And the primary elections is where it all happens. And so many independents don't even know that they can vote in the primary elections. To be clear, not the presidential preference election, but the primaries. And so that is keeping us, one, from getting the policies that we want. And then second, how do you, let's say you want to run for office and you care about women's issues or you're not polarized one way or the other. I will tell you, in this state, it's almost impossible to get through a Republican primary um, if you hold a more moderate position at this point in time. And so that many women and others who want to run for office simply choose not to because of what they have to go through. They either have to change who they are. I heard a lot of really horrific stories about how much you'd have to change who you are to win, but maybe that's the reality. Unfortunately, I've heard that from so many. Or once you get in office, what it takes for you to stay there. I'm not saying that doesn't happen on the Democratic side as well. I'm sure it does. I'm just talking the realities of where we are politically. So I wanted to highlight that. And we do have a report that talks briefly about that will be in the materials provided afterwards, so that all independents can become more aware of how to engage, one, if they want to vote and make their vote matter, and then just the challenges that we should look at and what we need to change systemically.
Thank you. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to add on this topic?
I'll add something.
Sure.
I can appreciate and recognize everything that has just been said. But I think we need to look at too, just that historically, the political climate and the culture of white supremacy can be so hostile and dismissive towards women, especially women of color. That just does not encourage us to participate. You look at that, not only that, but gender bias, the lack of funding and supportive networks, it does just make it challenging for women to enter and remain in the political arena. Mm-hmm. We see Vice President Harris, and we're ecstatic that she's in office, and it's simply because she's a Black woman. Mm-hmm. A lot of us don't even know what she stands for, but because she was able to get there, that's a win. But the system itself, as you just stated, Tara, the system itself and the barriers within the system are the biggest challenge, I would think, for us to be able to participate or even want to participate.
Jenna, do you have thoughts on how some of those barriers might be addressed? Is that something we should open to the panel, or seems like that's probably a discussion that could go on for the rest of the day?
Yeah, I think that would probably take a whole nother sit down.
Yeah.
And a lot more people at the table to discuss that.
Yeah. Thank you. That is insightful. Bernadetta.
Okay, for one thing, I gotta apologize because I have to cut out now because I have to get over.
You have to go hang out with the vice president.
Yeah, I gotta go hang out with the vice president. One thing I will say is,
Ms. Bernadetta, real quick, quick before you keep going, because you have to leave, I would like to take a group photo first, okay? Then you can answer the question. So if all of our panelists can go ahead and come off camera, Caitlin and Bryce as well. We are going to take a screenshot real fast that while Ms. Bernadetta is here. Everyone, okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, there you are. Carry on. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna say this question, and I know we do a closing, so I'm gonna say my last tidbit of question in my closing. I think that another thing we do is we dismiss and we allow politicians to treat us differently, and we still protect them. We still vote for them. Like I won't get into politics, but we had a president who blatantly discriminated against women every chance he got, but we still make excuses for him. I mean, that's a thing that we need to stop doing too. It doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, I don't care who is making this excuse. If you're not treating us fair, we need to start calling you out. We need to say, this is not right. And we need to stand behind the women that do call them out. You know, I saw a lot of that too. I saw a lot of people when and it's not just at the president level, any level, when they call them out, you know, we as women would run to flock and take their side. And you're like, they're talking about you too. Just because you may not be of that party doesn't mean that you're still a woman. Mm-hmm. And when it affects one, it affects all. So I think one of the things we need to do is start to hold hands. And this is about a woman's right. It's not about political right. It's about women's right. We need to stand together stronger. And that's what I would say as a woman. And I want to thank you guys. I wish I could stay longer to this because this conversation is so vitally important. Mm-hmm. And it will and I wish that more of our youth could hear this, because they're the ones that's coming into this world. They're the ones that's going to be at the table. They're going to be the ones. And I guarantee you, with the kids we have coming up, they're not going to ask permission to sit at that table. They're going to come and they're going to grab their seat. What I love about the kids that are coming past us, they're not asking for permission anymore. So that's in our generation that we felt we had to do it. But the women that are stronger, our ASU, our high school students, they're coming up and they're taking charge. And I'm proud and honored to be there for them, and if anything they need is a mentor. So thank you so much for having me today. As I said, this has been the highlight of my day to enjoy this. So and I wish everybody a very, very happy Women's International Month. Thank you.
You too, Bernetta.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Be safe. Thank you so much.
Uh-huh.
Gina, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I appreciate everything Bernetta just said. And, you know, just hearing these discussions, and I think, you know, just from a systemic approach, just some of the things that I think are challenging for women, you know, and I appreciate what Bernetta was talking about in terms of accountability. But I also think just the culture of how, you know, and we had discussions earlier about mental health. I think sometimes it's important we need to remember to give ourselves grace, you know, as women. And I say that when it comes to time. And I think time is our biggest challenge, you know, with everything that we have on our plates. And so the ability to make this, you know, can we participate? Can we run for office? You know, I love data. And so looking at the numbers, 25 of the women that did not vote in the 2022 general election, 25%, which was the top reason of why women reported that they didn't vote, was because they didn't have the time. And so that was the highest contributing factor. And so when we look at all of the things we're responsible for, and we say yes often to doing these things and taking on these responsibilities, and I think it's important where, you know, we give ourselves grace where, okay, you know, I really want to focus my time and energy on running for office. I really want to focus my time and energy on volunteering, on being civically engaged. And if that means that other things, you know, sort of have to drop off so we can make space for that, I think it's okay that we need to give ourselves grace to do that. And I think, you know, I still do think we're headed in the right direction in terms of, you know, what the data showcases and more women participating. And we look at those, the share of household responsibilities. 1 in 5 stay-at-home parents are now men, and we're seeing an increased rise in the number of stay-at-home dads. And, you know, I'm hopeful that, you know, all of these, what the data is showing from across the board is that we will see more and more opportunities for women to have that time to be able to contribute and participate more. But I think, you know, just from a cultural standpoint, I think, you know, sometimes we are our own worst critics, and we need to remember to treat ourselves with grace, where it's okay, you know, if you know, often we want to, we're super women, right? And we're amazing. But we have to remember to take care of ourselves, you know, our physical and mental health is important, and take care of our families, but finding the time to be able to be civically engaged and run for office and participate in the political process. I think time is one of our biggest challenges.
Thank you. Janelle, could you please add to? Thank you.
Yeah, I think the systems, you know, I wanted to talk about the de-incentivizing and what some things that we can do differently, because I always look at solutions. I'm solutions focused, like how do we change this? But one of the things that everyone has said, I agree, and I think one thing that we definitely I wanted to point out is when there are meetings, when there are opportunities for us to speak on things. Like, I'll just take it with mothers with children in education. Let's just start with education. School board meetings. The time of day oftentimes can be a problem. Some of the school board meetings start at 5, some of them start at 6, some of them start at 7, and then some of them go on for 2 and 3 hours, right? You've worked all day. You have to take care of the children. We talked about this. Your poem was perfect. All that we have to do, and then to try to sit at a school board meeting and listen to things that you probably are not so interested in, but you're there. Then when it's time for you to speak, they cut you off in 1 or 2 minutes. You could take in all this nerve to get there. So that's one of the issues that I see where it de-incentivizes us because of the time of day, the length of time it sometimes takes to even get up to have an opportunity to speak. I've sat in meetings where I had something to say, but it took me 12 hours for them to get to me to say it. And so who has time for that, especially when you have little people and you do want to be involved, but you don't have the time for that. So that's the system at work. These public comments, it says if it's not an agenda item, then we can't talk back to you. There's no interaction. So here I am here to speak to you as my elected official, whether it be a school board or any meeting, city council, and they tell me because it's not an agenda item that you came to speak to me about, I don't get a chance to respond to your concern. Unacceptable. Because the times that you're in your office for me to talk to you, I'm probably at work or I have something else going on. So those are the things that de-incentivize you. What can happen differently, what needs to happen differently is, like Burdetta says, we just have to come, take our seat at the table, and sometimes we'll have to impose upon your time because now this time works best for me. It may not work best for you, but it works best for me. Yeah. And we need to start showing up, taking our seat. I've had to do this. Most recently, we had a situation where I actually just had to show up at the Capitol. Shannon was with me, and I had to brought a lunch, brought my work, and I said, and you're going to talk to me. I am going to get the resolve I need today. And I just had to show up. I wasn't invited. No one saw me coming, but I had to do that. I had to take time out of my day to do it. And I wasn't leaving until I got what I wanted done. But that's what you have to do at times. You have to just take a stand and get the things done that you need to get done. I was civically engaged that day, very much so. And I talked to everybody I needed to get the resolve we needed. But my goodness, I interrupted their day, but they've been interrupting my day for months with stuff that wasn't working. So that's the courage we need as women. We have something to say. What needs to be done is to take care of our families. And we sometimes have to really bolster the courage, the time, the energy, and the extra effort it takes to just show up is something we're just going to have to do. That's part of it because oftentimes we don't get invited. We just have to take our seat and we have to show up.
This analogy, yeah, also good feedback on that. This analogy of coming in and taking a seat as opposed to being invited to sit at the table, I find so powerful. And I hope that it's okay with everyone. I plan to use it when I talk to other folks who are getting civically engaged, we spend a lot of time at the Secretary of State's office reaching out to folks who are in communities who are not typically engaged in the voting process. We have a very strong voter outreach coordinator who spends a lot of time identifying barriers to voting, communities that are experiencing those barriers, and then finding ways to address those barriers. And I would love to be able to use that analogy. Here, like, you need to take your seat. It's yours, claim it. If there are no objections, I'd love to move the conversation over to some audience questions now. Sounds good? Great. So the first question that we got is which is a great question, and it doesn't say who asked it, but I'm grateful for the person who did ask it. How do we uplift young women of color in all spaces, especially politics, and refrain from allowing ego and tokenism to negatively impact their views in these spaces? Yeah, so we're starting with the easy stuff here. Just
I'll jump in, although I'm not sure I heard the very last part of it. I heard how do we uplift young women of color? What was the part after that?
especially in politics, and how do we refrain from allowing ego and tokenism to negatively impact their lives in these spaces?
Okay. Yeah, great question. So I'm going to answer two parts. Well, there's two parts. The first part is how can we uplift them? I think we just reach out whenever we can. It can be as simple as a smile or sharing an experience. So one of the things I also do, I'm a yoga teacher, and it gives me an opportunity where it's a safe space. I can't tell you how many young women, including many young women of color, that in that space I can just approach, and especially as new moms or other challenges, and just being there simply to support each other. So number one, I think just reaching out, especially if you have the ability to do that with any woman, especially a young woman you see having those kind of challenges, just being a friendly ear. The second one I want to talk about, how do we create it from being tokenism? By showing the scientific evidence that diversity makes for better answers, that there is a value. If you want the best answer to anything, you want to create a space for diversity around the table. So it's not about tokenism. It's not about, it is about being the best leader, having the best business, having the best organization. If that's what you want, you need to bring those diverse perspectives together, and they have value.
I just wanted to take a moment to remind folks who are in the audience that if you have a question for our panel, we have a Q&A function down at the bottom of your screen. Please feel free to jump in. Does anyone else want to address this question before we move?
Yeah, I'm just still kind of marinating and reflecting on what Janelle was saying, because that hit me so hard. Because I look at I get a little emotional, my cultural background, my religious background, my community, my family dynamic. And it never told me to dare to take. And I think Janelle hit on something, like it is a mindset. And I think Alberto said somewhere mentoring, like, of course, mentoring. But it's a mindset of, in big and small ways, daring to take. And there is extreme sacrifice in that, right? Because we're from this polite society. I was brought up in a religion, a family dynamic, that being a good person was being polite.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't always lend to having a voice in civic participation. So it's this mindset of teaching young people to dare to take. It's raising and interfacing with good allies, whether that's young men. I'm trying to raise an enlightened young man. God help me. I'm doing my best. And it's also even upholding allies, people like Alberto, who and the Pastor Center, where I think that the congressman did a great job of this, of like, we've also got to give some love to our allies who have taken the time, when to a degree, there's no expediency in terms of what's in it for them. So thank you, thank you to our allies and lifting them up, but daring to take. Janelle, preach.
Mm-hmm.
I want to, first of all, thank you, Bettina. And again, for our young women of color, one of the things that we've done, and we've really been very intentional about that, is whenever I have a space or platform, we're always reaching out to them to have them be a part of that space and platform, encouraging them to do that. You're right. We have all been taught, especially as women, to wait on someone to invite us. That's the polite thing to do. That's what we were taught. And I too, religion, how I was raised, all the things. Just don't make a lot of waves, Janelle. Just go along to get along, get along so you can move along. But there comes a time in your life, and we are in that season now in America, especially with what Bettina was saying, Burdetta was saying, women's rights are being removed left and right, slowly but surely. And if we don't watch it, we're going to be sitting someplace in a season where we won't even have a voice. So we'll have to assert it. We have to do that now for our young people. But to uplift them is to bring them to the table intentionally, because we are in spaces now where we have a platform, and it's making sure we utilize that platform, not for the I, selfie me, but for them, because this world is changing and it's going to impact them more so than us at this point. You know, the choice as far as my body, I believe every woman has a right to determine what she wants to do with her body. And nobody should be able to tell me whether or not I'm gonna have a child today or one tomorrow. But my childbearing years are behind me. Praise the Lord. They are behind me. So I've done that, been there, done that. But my young women, they definitely, this is a season in their life. Like she said, I've never seen this where we never had that. And so we definitely need to make sure we bring them to the table. But like Burdetta said, many of our young girls are taking their seat. They are speaking up. They're speaking up in a bold and powerful way. We just need them to step aside and let them do so, because many of them do have the courage to stand and to show up. They are showing up. And all we get to do is say, okay, I love that you showed up. I love what you said. Now, what can I do to help you proceed in this area down this path? And so that's where the mentorship comes in, and the acceptance, accepting how they show up, the way they show up. Because again, we came from the polite era where we were showing up a certain way. They're showing up differently. We need to respect that, embrace that, and help them to grow in a way where that way they show up is productive and it garners the results that they're there to garner.
And I'll add to that. I think too, with everything that you just said, Janelle, I think sometimes it only takes us just standing with them in whatever capacity that they need us to, whatever that looks like. Let them show up the way that they need to show up, and we just stand in support for if they do need to take a look back and see if they're okay, and to know that we're there. I think that lends a lot to being supportive and helping to uplift, because again, they are taking their seat. They're bringing their own chairs. They're bringing whatever it is that they need to the space. So if we can, at the very least, just be a backbone of support, I think that's huge.
Yeah, listening a bit more and realizing we have something to learn from them. Because I think, again, we're in a society where if you're older, you're wiser. Well, not necessarily. I mean, there's something to be gained, right? But like, we have something to learn from them and treating them as such.
Well, I'll jump in too. I know the question is specific to, uplifting young women, but I want to go further, our young girls. And I think we need to give them the tools so that they feel that they have the confidence to do this, the bravery to do this. And I think that starts, the biggest tool we can give them is education. And I know this gets into a policy discussion. Not all schools are created equal, and I think that the more that we can make sure that we have, a robust education system for our young students, to educate them about civic engagement, about how to be citizens, how to be a part of society, and why they as individuals matter, why their unique voices and perspectives matter, and showing up with them at that young age, introducing them to, school board meetings, taking them to, down to the legislature, taking them to these events so that it's not a foreign concept to them. They have that introduction, they have, that experience, and they have this wonderful mentor who is standing up with them and guiding them through the process, by giving them that education so that they feel confident that, they too can contribute, and that they can be courageous to share their voices. I think that is a very big component. One of the most powerful tools that we can give young women is that education so that they feel powerful to speak up.
Thank you. I just want to share with the audience that the panelist chat is lit right now. And we've decided to name this series Folding Chairs because we're all bringing our folding chairs.
I want to add to this conversation as well and answer a bit of this question as I can. So it says, how do we uplift young women of color and refrain from allowing ego and tokenism to negatively impact their view? And I want to speak to the topic of tokenism and ego, because when you're coming into these spaces as a new professional, whether you're young or whether you've changed careers, and you are a woman of color or a Black woman, and you're coming into these spaces and you see individuals in these spaces already who look like you. However, they don't act like you, and they have assimilated and become the token for the organization and allowed the ego to get in the way of change. And it is very discouraging. It is very, very discouraging. And so I want to speak to that, because when we come into these spaces, it's easy for us to become the token. And we have to ask ourselves, right? Did I come into this space to make change, to affect change, to bring the change, or did I come in here to perpetuate what's already here? And what we're finding is that what's already there is not what we want there. I have left jobs because of the tokenized leader oppressing me, and they looked like me. Okay. So what I'm saying is that sometimes we do have to walk away from environments that will cause us to change who we are or force us to become a version of ourselves that we don't like. And so when we find ourselves in those environments, and they happen in these political spaces often, all the time. Let me just be real, and I'm hope I can keep my job after this, but it happens. So don't be discouraged by it. However, it is discouraging. You just have to remain true to yourself. What are your values? What are your strengths? What are your morals? And when they are compromised, we have to ask ourselves, is this space for me anymore? And sometimes it's not. And that is okay if we want to make the most effective change. And we're not going to change the mind of the people that have been there for 30 years and they've had to become this version of themselves to survive in that space. I also give grace to the people who look like me, who've been here for 30 years and had to become that version, because they come from a different era of maybe having to be that way, right? It doesn't excuse their behavior. It just allows us to give them grace and understand that's not what we want to become. So that's my advice. Know who you are, understand your values, your morals, and your ethics. And when they become compromised in a place, you have to ask yourself if that place is for you. Be mindful not to become the token. It's okay to accept opportunities, speak on behalf of things, if you show up as yourself. You become the token when you silence yourself and you enter that place as a different version of you. So I hope that was received. That's all the advice I wanted to give, because I've definitely experienced that same question and it is not comfortable. Shout out to Alberto, who rescued me.
Can I say something to that, Tiffany, real quick? What you just described are individuals in our society. And when I go into spaces and I see that, first of all, that just wears me out when I see that we've had to assimilate in order to get along. But the saying goes, that type of mentality is, Janelle, I just have to accept the things that I cannot change. And what I like to challenge, what I'm starting to challenge people with, and myself, is that we need to set our mind to change the things we cannot accept. We have to set our mind to change the things we cannot accept. And when we set our mind to that, that's where when you talk about being true to yourself, you're saying, I'm not going to sit here and accept this foolishness. I'm going to set my mind to change this. And if I can't change it here, then I'm going to have to move out of this space and change it from a different vantage point. But in the end, it will get changed. I just may not be able to do it from this vantage point, but I will change it, because I've set my mind to do that, because this is unacceptable and I'm not going to stand for it. And that's the type of mentality we have to have. And that's the type of mentality we have here at Black Mothers Forum. We don't sit up here and accept these things that are unacceptable. That's my main word. Shannon tells me that all the time. I'm like, that's unacceptable. What you just told me is unacceptable. I am going to do something different to make sure that that changes. And so set your mind to change the things you cannot accept. That's what you just said, Tiffany.
Thank you. That is powerful advice and frankly, words to live by. I keep jotting down things that the panelists are saying because it is wisdom in its truest form, and I thank you all for sharing this. Would you like me to move to another audience question? Oh, okay. What advice would you give to young women who aspire to pursue careers in public service or in leadership roles? I'm gonna just jump in and offer a succinct answer. Just do it. Thank you. Do it. And to the panelists, if you have anything to add, please do.
I think Janelle said it, dare to take a little bit, you know, find the courage to do that. And I think also remind yourself that you're not doing it alone. So seeking people out to do it as a community, if and when possible. You don't have to ask for permission, but I still, even though I got so emotional, I still believe in collegiality, right? I still believe that even though things are complex, dare to take, have the courage, do your very best to be direct but kind. And I think that being collegial when and where possible, there are times for everything, there is a season, right? And so when you can be collegial, but realize you don't get there alone. So try to surround yourself with people who have your best interest in mind too.
Thank you. Kara?
First of all, I love the discussion about being the change and having the courage to jump in whenever you can. I want to add a reference to something Gina said earlier, and something I certainly had to sort of learn the hard way, which is that you have to take care of yourself in order to fight these battles and to take care of others. So making sure that you balance self-care, whether it is surrounding yourself with people who can support you, whether it is just taking a long hot bath at the end of the day without any interruptions, or whatever it is that you can do to nurture yourself so you can be your full potential for everyone else.
Thank you. Gina?
Yeah, I think the advice that I would give is, first, say out loud to yourself or write it down. Why do you want to be in public service? And remembering what public service truly is. What is the true goal of public service? What are you trying to do to help your community? What is your goal, and how is that going to leave an impact on your community? How is it going to benefit others? Because that, to me, I think is going to be where you find your passion, and that's going to be your motivator for when things get tough and you encounter challenges. So I think, really identifying with yourself why you want to, pursue this this career in public service, and staying true to yourself and those goals and why it matters to you. And then I think the next piece of advice I would give is to just show up. Put your face out there, show up to the events, go to the city council meetings, go down to the legislature. It's going to be uncomfortable at first. It's going to be nerve-wracking, but start making those connections, volunteer, putting your face out there, because I think your network is going to be very important when you start to, pursue these aspirations. So I think building your network is a very important piece of that, and just showing up. So people start to see your face, they recognize you. And, the more, again, making space for yourself there, right? Bringing your own chair. So I think that's really important, is to just show up, and when you're starting out, and keep showing up.
I think that is excellent advice. Does anyone have anything to add? I will move on to the next question then. I'm gonna combine two questions because I think that the discussion is related. The first question is, oftentimes Us as young women of color look up to older women for guidance and support, but are sometimes torn down by these same folks. How would you advise them to navigate this? And to that point, it's often difficult for women of color to speak up because white women disregard or speak over us. I think those are fair points, and would love for the panel to address them if they feel so called.
I've actually been one of those young women at one point where I wanted to serve, and I went to older women to help me in that role, to be involved, and was torn down for it, and it really set me back. So I know the feeling when that happens, and one of the things that I had to do once that happened was I had to take a step back and figure out why I wanted to do what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And was it for attention? Was it to be seen? Or really, was it my passion to really serve and to really be a part of the answer, to be a part of solving problems in our community? I believe you really have to not worry about what other people think about you. You have to do what you believe that you're being led to do. I was just at a rally, and one of the speakers said, your pain should fuel your passion, and your passion fuels your purpose. So it doesn't matter what you think about me. And young women have to get to that. Doesn't matter. I'm going to go find somebody who does believe in me. Maybe it wasn't you, but then I'm going to go search for someone who will believe in me and help me. But above all, I have to believe in myself, that I have what it takes to do what it's going to take to solve this problem. And that takes great introspection and reflection, but know thyself and be true to thyself, no matter what anyone else says about you. Don't let that person be the reason why you stop doing what you've been called to do. And I've had many of them over the years discourage me, hurt my heart, all the things, but I still had to be true to who I believe I am, and I keep moving. And now that I'm in position, I'm now able to make sure I pour into others. Does it always work perfectly? No. Some of the little ladies get their little feelings hurt because I do walk in truth with my young people. But for the most part, my heart is for them to be true to themselves and to know that they can do anything they set their mind to if it's truly for the right reasons.
Thank you.
This one's hard for me to say because I read a book that was transformative for me years ago. It's called The Four Agreements.
Mm-hmm.
And I should look for a book that's written by a woman, so that's on me. But one of the four agreements is really not to take anything personally. And it's ridiculous because when you're hurt and you're in pain, it is a good book. To not take it personally. The point is, don't take it so personally that you become stuck, you become constipated. So try to move on. Try not to wallow and stay in that hurtfulness because of someone that you expected to be helpful was not. Because again, that'll just constipate you on a number of levels. One of the other agreements is don't make assumptions. And so think a little bit, maybe perhaps those that you assumed would be most helpful to you weren't. That's okay. Don't take it personally, move on. And be more open to looking around you because perhaps it's the person in the room that you're making an assumption they won't be helpful. Perhaps they will. So it's sort of broadening your vision. Those two have been helpful when people that I assumed would be helpful weren't. Those two have helped get me through those agreements.
So speaking of the four agreements, I have the four agreements cards. So we're going to take one right now. All right. We have always do your best.
Not planned. We swear this was not planned.
Take your life and enjoy it.
Yes.
You are alive, so take your life and enjoy it. You were born with the right to be happy, to love, and to share your love. Just to be, to take a risk and enjoy your life is all that matters.
Perfect timing, Tiffany. Thank you so much. We are through, it looks like the questions that we've gotten from the audience. And this has been an extraordinary time with all of you, and we are moving into the closing. So I'd love to offer, oh, you know what, Alberto has his hand up, and I guess we'll let him talk, even though it's International Women's Day.
How generous of you. Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much. I have a question for the panelists, and it's one that I'm a little, I don't really feel this has been brought up yet. There's been a lot of discussion about how the roles and expectations of motherhood affect all of these issues. But I was wondering about relationships, husbands, boyfriends, partners, to what extent those relationships either the avert expectations or support from your partner or lack of that, how much that's still an issue in terms of women deciding to step into leadership spaces or run for office or apply to be appointed to positions. Because I've seen that with women in my life that are capable of a lot, but I feel like, frankly, to be bare bones about it, that their relationships hold them back because maybe their partners aren't supportive or actively discourage them from taking on those roles. So I just was curious, what the panelists think about that.
Kara was quick with her hands.
I'll jump in because I have seen that and experienced it over the years in so many ways. The reality is we come from a culture that's been dominated by here's the roles you should be in. And there are many men who I think are intimidated by strong women in those positions, and it really does become a pressure point. Well, I can't say that's my experience in most recent years, and I can tell you that I feel like as a young woman, I had to choose between relationships or other goals, all the types of goals we've talked about today. And frankly, for me, the relationships didn't make it. But I also want to take this time to say that some of the most important ways we can create change, and thank you, Alberto, for asking this question, is to have all of our men supporting why it is so important to empower women. And I want to get back to that. The world will be a better place. This has been shown over and over again if women are more empowered. And so whatever we can do to make sure that half of the population is understanding that as well. I feel really, really blessed and lucky that my two sons, watching how they support their wives and encourage them and actually try to encourage them to take more roles, it just fills my heart and gives me hope. So I want to make sure we're not just talking about what women can do for women, but what men can do for women, which in turn has such a huge impact on our world.
And I'll jump in too. I really like this question, and I'm very grateful for my husband. We've been together for 24 years, and he's very supportive. But I'm gonna pivot a little bit, and it's not so much my relationship with him that got us to be here, but it was a relationship with my dad. I will tell you, as I have the best parents in the world. I'm so grateful, and I have a wonderful mother, strong, loving, right? But when I am in professional environments or anything where I think, I get nervous or scared or something, it's my dad's voice that pops up in my head because he was the one who always empowered me. He was the one who always said, you can do whatever you want. He's the one, who said, you need to go to school, you need to get your education. These are the tools that you need. And he's always the one who has pushed me and, encouraged me and always gave me the confidence to speak up and never take crap from anybody, type thing. So I think it was so important having a father who was present, but also built me up in such a way that never once growing up, did I ever consider my gender to be, an issue, because I always felt so empowered by my dad. And so I think that relationship, that I had with my father, and my mom is a role model too, that helped me and when choosing my partner, when choosing my husband, for somebody who would also continue to support me and has set my expectations, so high. So I think just the relationship that I had with my father was so impactful and really truly made a difference to allow me to build that confidence and the courage to, pursue my aspirations in public service.
Thank you. Janelle?
Yeah, I think that was a great question, Alberto. And thinking about relationships, I've been married now, I think we've been married about 30 years, I think we're there. And one of the things that we had to discuss early on was I had this fire in me from the beginning of our marriage, but it was, corporate America. I was focused on our son and all the things. But as we continued to grow, I had to have the conversation, who is going to be the one that's going to be in the public space? Is it going to be both of us doing this thing? And I was cool with it. It was either way. I was like, however, if you want to be the one out doing something, but one of us needs to do something to better our community. It's no sense in us living here and we're not bettering the community. And we had that discussion a while ago, and I believe it's always good, especially because of our community that we live in, to have those conversations with men, because, in the Black community, men are, tend to be more of the dominant in certain parts of the Black community. Then you have it where mama is very dominant, because we have a lot of single mother homes. And so we're head of household. So it just really depends. And both of us came from mothers who were heads of household. So we came from women running things. And so learning how to be in a space where I'm now married, trying to figure out where he belongs in the relationship, where my role is in the relationship, how we work this. That was a conversation we had early on. And for some reason, I actually had the fortitude. I don't know where I got it, but I had the fortitude to have that conversation with him early on. And he recognized, no, it's on you. You go do it. And he was very supportive, but he was like this: I don't want to be in the limelight. I don't want to be out front. No one needs to see me. I'm behind the scenes. I'll support you. And having that conversation earlier than later in our relationship was huge, right? Because that way I knew he had my back, but he was going to be the one behind the scenes. And that's okay. But I longed for him to be next to me, but that wasn't how ours was going to work. But he never held me back from doing what I get to do. And that's been a great thing. So that's a great question, Alberto. Many people need to have that discussion earlier than later in relationships. But if you find that calling, if you feel like you're supposed to go into public service, you need to have that conversation with your significant other or your family, because your family also, my son had to be involved in being in the limelight, his name out there, him being with me in these spaces. So it's a family affair.
Very good point.
And I'll speak to it real quickly, just from the perspective of already being in the work. When I came into a relationship, and my partner was very much supportive in everything that I was doing, so much so that I had to start seeing myself through his eyes, because we were so in alignment. He wanted more for me. And he would always tell me, my time has passed. This is now for you. And so he would push me ahead and kind of sit back and just be that support for me. I think it's about finding someone who's in alignment. And not to say that it was perfect and that we agreed on everything, but he understood that I had a path and a journey that I was on, and he was in full support of that. So I don't know. I don't know that for me, that's never really been a thought. So that is a really good question. That's something I'll have to take into the future. Definitely.
So we're at about 1:16. I'd love to invite the panelists to offer some closing thoughts and closing remarks. Anybody want to go first? I'll just start calling names.
I can go. I can go.
Teacher. I'll call
I'll,
names.
I'll jump in, Murphy. I'm happy to leave the closing remarks with it's an election year. You know, what greater way? We've seen some links throughout that Tiffany's been posting to get registered. But you know, every ballot, every choice is important. You're going to see items ranging from federal offices to local measures on your ballot, and you know, you have the opportunity to share what you think should happen and help shape your community with those choices. And so I highly encourage everybody to get registered to vote, and then to take, like, you know, we talk about how time is a challenge, but to take the time, because it matters, it's important, you know, to research the candidates, research the issues, and cast your ballot, because again, you matter, your voice matters. And so I think this is, you know, 2024, a big election year, and I think you're going to have opportunities to be able to get civically engaged. And again, we know voting is one form of that. So, you know, get registered, activate that political power that you have, and make your voice heard. So I would leave you all with that, just remembering what opportunities are available this year. So, and you know, closing comments again, thank you to the Pastor Center and to everybody for hosting this. I certainly learned a lot. I am, you know, so inspired by all of the women on here, and I think it was just such a wonderful way to celebrate International Women's Day. So thank you for having us.
Thank you, Gina. Gina, one other thing that you left out was that a way for people to do that research and get that information is through clean elections.
Yes, our website.
Yeah, we should definitely include some clean elections resources in the follow-up here, because it is a treasure trove of information.
Thank you. Yes, azcleanelections.gov. We make it easy for you from all points of civic participation, including voting, and all the information that you need to make it easy for you. Because again, your time is valuable. So there you go. Thanks, Murphy.
Yeah, no problem. Got you. Who would like to go next?
I'll go next. I'll echo that. Oh, go right ahead. Go right ahead.
I was going to say, whichever way you want to go. I will just follow up, because I think also what Gina said is really important. And first of all, Clean Elections is an amazing resource we happen to have. And just this program itself has really been inspiring. I also learned a lot I didn't know, and I think it's helpful for us to continue to share our voices in this way. I would add that when looking at how you can vote, know that the primaries are so essential, and that you can be strategic about it, and to look at those resources that we'll be sending. But the final word I would say, and I just really can't stress this enough, is to do whatever you can do. That might be something little, like, or that is unexpected or unscheduled, like just talking to a young woman you see, you know, waiting on a bus stop, or it could be something much more major, like running for office. But do whatever you can do, because it all matters in the end.
Thank you so much. Bettina, did you want to?
Sure, I'm happy to. Yeah, what a marvelous way to spend the day. Thank you. Thank you to so many of you. Thank you, fellow panelists and Pastor Center. I think we just have to be dedicated to shifting the mindset that every issue and every policy issue is a woman's issue.
Mm-hmm.
Every single one. We didn't have the right to vote until 1919, ratified in 1920. I found out the other day, 1987, even up until 1987, women, in order to own a business or to own a home, had to have a cosigner of a male cosigner. That blew my mind. I didn't know that. That's in my lifetime. And so every policy issue is a women's issue. Yes, reproductive rights, but someone said earlier, reproductive rights, that also means if you experience a miscarriage, if you're going through IVF. I mean, it's much broader conversation. And so we need to educate ourselves and others about it, because every issue is a women's issue, and that includes the economy and finances, and that we can step into those spaces and have intelligent and important, meaningful conversations about it. And I'll just leave with this, when telling you the story of your life, because right now we have a political system, and it continues, where those telling the story of our life don't understand our lived experiences, older, whiter, male. They don't know our lived experiences. And so when telling the story of our life, why would we give anybody else the pen? We need to take back the pen. So take the pen.
grab the chair, take a pen.
I love it.
Oh, I love that. That's good. I'll start using that. I'll give you attribution.
Grab a chair, take
So
the
you
pen.
said it. It's yours. I just stuck it together. Story of my life. Chanel.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say thank you all for allowing us to celebrate International Women's Day together. Thank you, Pastor Center. Happy birthday, Tiffany. Again, I said happy birthday to you before we got on the call, but I'll say it again formally to you. Happy birthday. But I'd like to just leave us with the closing remark that you got to know what your agenda is. Don't let someone else dictate what your agenda is. You go to your polls, you look at the candidates, you go to clean elections, read it up, but you got to know what it is you want. And you got to know the questions that need to be answered for you in order for you to vote for somebody or in order for you to vote for an issue. You got to settle that. And that means you have to sit down and think about the pain points in your life. If you start there, that's easy. I think Tara says, start where you're at, do something. That one thing could be you just sitting at your table saying, you know what, what's my pain point? My pain point is money right now, or my pain point is education, whatever it is. Now, let me take a look at these candidates and see if they are hitting on my pain point. If they are focused on the area to help resolve some of that pain and give me some relief, then that's where I'm going to start. And the same with the issues, but start somewhere. Get and register to vote. You got to vote. You got to show up. Because if you don't show up because you believe, and we were talking about what Bettina just said, the two guys that we have running for president, they do not know my story. They cannot relate to me as a Black woman in America. They do not know my community. And so I have to be very, very focused and intentional about making sure that they do, and the candidates that represent me at least know what my voice is and what my story is. And that's through my vote, me showing up to town hall meetings. Show up and meet these candidates. When you hear about where they're going to be, you need to get out and meet them. You need to go if you can. If you need to send questions to their campaign, be a part of campaigns. Get on the phone, help people, walk some streets, look at some flyers. That's a way you can get involved as well. And I've done it all. And as time permits, do your part. And that's the way we make America great. I don't want to use the line, make America great again, but that's how we make a better America, an America that's diverse, an America that reflects our values, and above all, an America that values women and our children and our diverse communities. So thank you.
Thank you.
Am I last? Do I get to be the last one?
I'm
Final thought.
Just real quick, I want to echo what everyone has said. When we look at just the lay person, when we look at civic engagement, it's overwhelming and it encompasses so many things. So I agree, we have to start where we are. Just start where you are, find the thing that is your passion, and work with that. It, like Janelle said, it could be something as simple as just supporting someone else in what they're doing, however that looks. But I think it's important for us to know that when we're engaging, when we're advocating, it doesn't have to look like everyone else. Your process is your process. Show up as you are, show up how you show up, but show up. I think that's the most important thing.
Thank you. Last call.
Your final thoughts, Murphy?
I'm so grateful to be able to participate in this conversation. I have learned so much and have had some ideas articulated that have been floating around in the back of my mind that I haven't been able to put words to. And so I'm exceedingly grateful to the women on this panel for sharing their wisdom and their thoughts with all of us. I could not think of a better way to spend International Women's Day, also known as Tiffany's birthday, than to have a discussion like this. I hope that we get to do it again, and I hope that we are able to find the strength and the spirit that we need to continue this work with each other. So thank you all. And thank you to the Pastoral Center. Y'all are amazing.
Thank you so much, Murphy. Thank you for moderating this conversation. It has been amazing. I want to give my final thoughts. First, I want to say thank you to everybody for celebrating my birthday with me on this wonderful International Women's Day. No, I am not upset. I have to share it with all of you. I'm grateful. Also, extremely grateful for all of our panelists who contributed to this conversation, co-created this conversation with us. It has been inspiring to me and empowering to me. I'm still new in this space. And so to see all of you women who have been in this space for so long and to be able to sit at your feet for just 2 hours has really been beneficial for me. So thank you so much for all of your contributions today. I hope we can see and continue to grow together in this space. My final thoughts for everyone here is, what I heard was for the young folks or for the people who are getting into this space and how discouraging it can be when you meet someone who looks like you, who you don't connect with or who you don't feel like is helping or moving you forward. My advice is to find your anchor. Find that one person who you can trust, who will be there with you, you can vent to, and you know that it's not going to go anywhere, and someone who can nurture your development. And kind of like the question Alberto asked, it is the men in my life who I feel safest with right now, who I can talk to, who I can go to, who I feel value me and nurture me and support me. And so we need men as well, right? We need each other and we need the matriarch to come back, but we also need our men to stand beside us and help us. And whether it's a relationship or a friendship or a partnership or a colleague, like I said, Alberto is amazing and has nurtured me through so much. And so it is the men sometimes who we need to lean on as well. So that is my advice to everyone is find your anchor, find the person that you can trust, that you can vent to. Sometimes you might have to test the waters a bit and the person you trusted first isn't the one that you can trust. So just give a little bit of tidbits first before you go spilling everything out. But find that anchor because you will need it and it will ground you as we continue to grow and do this work together. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here, spending your time with us. I will pass it on to Alberto for his final thoughts. Oh, there is an anonymous exit survey. We do collect anonymous data to share with people who we think should know this information. We also just want to know if there's anything that you didn't share in this time or any of our audience members who had thoughts they wanted to share as well. We will be sending that information out after the event. So Caitlin should be putting that survey link in the chat for everybody. So on to you, Alberto.
Thank you so much and happy birthday, Tiffany. And we're speaking for the both of us, so grateful for the generosity of time and wisdom of our panelists. When we got this lineup together, I couldn't believe it. They all said yes. So great. But just listening to this conversation, it just really strikes me how important and powerful your stories are. All of you have shared some really very personal experiences and stories. And the point I want to make is don't undervalue how important it is for young people that are in your lives to hear those stories. Because I think something that can be discouraging to a lot of young people, especially young women of color, is they see leaders in these positions and may have the impression that they've always had their stuff together. It's important for young people to hear about the struggles and the failures and the embarrassing things that you learned from. I think thinking back in my own career, all of my most important mentors were women. And part of what made them really incredible mentors was they were very vulnerable and open and talked to me about their frustrations and what they had to overcome and the BS they had to put up with to get to where they were. So I grew up professionally kind of hearing about the imperfections and the struggles and being able to identify with that in many ways. So I think our young people really need to see what are it's not a straight line from point A to point B for for people that get to these leadership positions to see that and learn about those struggles and those learning opportunities and disappointments and things that didn't work out, because I think that makes that kind of leadership more attainable for them, more relatable for them. So we need to present ourselves with all of our flaws and our mistakes and our lessons learned, so that younger people, I think, can aspire to the things that we're doing and go past us and say, well, that Alberto, he's a nice guy, but I'm smarter than him. I can, he got to there, I can do better than that. So I just think you've all shared really wonderful stories. Continue to do that, and do that in the spirit of helping young people identify with you and create a broader vision of what it is that they can accomplish. So thank you so much. Happy International Women's Day, and we look forward to continuing to engage all of you long into the future.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
We'll see you
Thank you. Bye.
We'll see you soon.
Have a good one. Bye.
Thank you.
Goodbye and thank you.
All right, y'all, let's go.